Good morning, this is Dr. McDaniel here at GYN Corner. It's our last day in England. Leaving Windsor this morning. Actually this afternoon, but we're leaving our hotel this morning, heading off to the airport for our flight back to the good old US of A. And yesterday I didn't do a second part because I didn't realize it, but at the time when I went to look back at the video, I saw, oh, this is almost 8 minutes. I might as well leave it be, and I'll do a continuation today. So during the trip, I've been talking about cervical cancer prevention, things to do to decrease your risk of having pre-cancer and cancerous changes. And the first line of defense is always going to be the Gardasil vaccine, Gardasil 9, to decrease the potential risk of having the viral infection that causes precancer and cancer changes of the cervix. Second and most important line of defense is the PAP smear, Papa Nicolau screen. I would say a good number of patients, usually young girls, when they come in, they say they want an annual and a PAP, and then by the end of the exam they go, so what exactly is the PAP? What does that do? And that's what made me decide to do this talk, because even though a lot of people know they're supposed to, air quotes, get a PAP smear, they don't really know what it does or what the purpose is and why they should do it. So Papa Nicolau smear is an exfoliation of this. It's a process where we exfoliate the cervix, and under microscopic evaluation, the cervical cells are examined to see if they look normal or abnormal. If they look abnormal, do they look abnormal due to environmental factors, or do they look abnormal due to precancerous changes or even cervical cancer? Cervical cancer is not inherited, it's an infectious cancer. It's due to a sexual infection called human papillomavirus, or HPV. And there are over 180 strains of HPV. The world's experts have identified 14 of those strains as being the most likely to cause severe precancer or very early cervical cancer if left to their own devices within 2 to 3 years of infection and activity. So HPV, or human papillomavirus, is similar to HSV, or herpes simplex virus, in that the virus is not constantly actively replicating. That person is not constantly contagious, and it's not constantly perpetually, continually doing things to cause changes to the cervix. So just like HSV, I think most people know if they have mouth, oral, or genital herpes, they're not constantly having outbreaks or cold sores. They're not constantly contagious. Their immune system is predominantly responsible for suppressing that viral activity. And if the immune system is strong, it's able to suppress the viral activity, prevent outbreaks, symptoms, and prevent passing the infection on. They're not contagious. If their immune system is compromised, so they have a stress, good stress, bad stress, weddings, funerals, exercise, surgeries, cough, cold, flu season, any kind of stressor to the immune system will allow a breach in that protective layer, protective suppression for the viral activity. The virus is allowed to be active, and if it's active, it will replicate. It will do its job, which is to make cervical changes, precancerous changes appear, and that person will be contagious. So the catch with HPV, or human papillomavirus, is that it is an infection that causes cervical cancer. And in order to cause cancer, it causes precancerous changes to get to that goal. I mentioned yesterday that I had a patient who had only been sexually active for 6 months, and when she came in for the PAP smear, she almost had cervical cancer. She had severe precancerous changes, the most severe you can get, high-grade squamous intraepithelial lesion, or HGSIL, with glandular involvement. So when someone gets precancerous changes, it always starts out early and then it progresses to severe. And it starts at the outer cervical cells, the overwhelming majority of the time, and then it slowly moves inward to the endocervical cells, where it more rapidly causes changes that lead to cervical cancer, usually within a very short amount of time, so predominantly within 6 months to a year. So this lady not only had, she's like 23, 24, this young woman not only had moved from normal cervix to mild early changes all the way to severe high grade precancerous changes, and she had gland involvement. So she was probably within 6 months of having cervical cancer, which is shocking. So she not only had HPV, one of the high-risk strains, she had a very aggressive strain of high-risk HPV. Now, as I mentioned previously, the conventional pap smear just looks at the cervical cells. The liquid pap smear looks at the cervical cells, and it checks the pap juice, or the leftover liquid from the pap smear. It checks that for viral activity, for HPV activity. And if the cells, sorry, I'm just looking at someone playing with a dog on the grounds of the palace, and of course that sign right there says stay off the grass. But lots of people have been running around on the grass. So the liquid pap smear does a double duty. We call that co-testing. So not only does it look at the cervical cells themselves to see if they look normal or abnormal, it also checks to see if the virus is active or not active. Because if the viral activity is present and the cells are abnormal, that's a strong indication that there really is something going on. So when we get the PAP report back, we only get one of two reports. It's either going to be normal or abnormal, so it's going to look like there isn't any precancer change or there is precancer change. If they get the co-testing and the cells look normal and there isn't any viral activity, that gives us the confidence to believe that everything really is normal, the confidence. It gives us an 85 to 95% confidence rating that she really is normal. And that's why a lot of the experts are saying if you have the co-testing done and everything looks normal, you don't need to do the PAPs every year, because probably really is normal. You can do them every 2 to 3 years, because on average it takes about 3 years to go from normal to severe precancer. And I gave you basically a case study that said that's not true for everyone. And of course in medicine we know that's not true for everyone. It's going to be true for most people who are under that bell curve. So the catch is you don't know if you're in the average or if you're at the one end or the other of that bell-shaped curve. So you have to be your own best advocate, and you have to decide for yourself what you're comfortable doing. Are you comfortable leaving the PAPs for every 2 to 3 years, or are you more comfortable checking every year, even if they tell you that you have to pay for it? Because a lot of the insurance plans now are no longer paying for tests. The tests are all falling under deductibles or non-covered services. But I know for our office, if someone doesn't want to go through their insurance because the lab fees are too expensive, or if they don't have insurance at all, we have a lab, BioReference. We send our labs to BioReference, and they will give Medicaid rates for people who don't have coverage or basically don't want to use their coverage because they can't afford it. So for the PAP smear, currently I know it's $40 for the liquid PAP smear, which is reasonable for most people. So if it comes back normal with the co-testing, we can pretty much believe it's normal 85 to 95% of the time. If it comes back abnormal, the same is true. If the cells look abnormal and the virus is present, that means 85 to 95% of the time there's really something going on. It has to be investigated. Now, when we have abnormal for the PAP smear, comes in 2 flavors. It comes, actually it's more like 3 flavors if I think about it. It comes back abnormal, strongly suspicious for precancerous changes, or it'll come back abnormal, they don't know what's going on, but the cells just don't look normal. We call that atypia. So it'll come back atypical squamous cell changes, or atypical squamous cells of undetermined significance, which means the outer cells of the cervix look abnormal, but they don't know why they look abnormal, or atypical glandular cells of either cervical or uterine origin. The labs have a quality assurance for that. They're not supposed to have more than 15% of their monthly PAP reports come back in that atypical category, because it's not super helpful. It's not decisive enough. But if the pap smear comes back abnormal, either the cells just plain old look abnormal, especially if the viral activity is present, or excuse me, if the cells look abnormal and the viral activity is present, then additional testing is supposed to be done. The pap smear is a screening test. The additional testing is called a diagnostic test, and that's a colposcopy. I'll go into colposcopy evaluation, indications, and what's done on tomorrow's presentation. That's Monday. I'll be back in the States. I'll be back at the office, so it'll be a busy Monday. This is Dr. McDaniel at GYN Corner. I hope everyone's enjoying and getting a lot of value from the presentations. This is the Facebook page. I'm doing videos and loading everything on later because the access to the internet's been non-existent to sketchy at best. And then I'm going to load everything to my YouTube page, which is also called GYN Corner, when I get back to the States throughout this week. Hopefully I'll try to catch up to current day. Thanks again. Everyone have a great rest of the day. It's our last day in the UK. Bye. Our hotel across the street from the our hotel was across the street from the palace. Voom. That's where we stayed, the Hart and Garter. And there's Windsor Palace right across the street. Very nice. Thank you.